Excel 2007 database tools. Well, chances are you're going to have tons and tons of data in your Excel spreadsheet. A lot of people use this as a database, and now in 2007 you can have 1,000,000 rows and 16,000 columns, so your data could get way out of hand. Of course, your memory and your processor has to be able to accommodate that much data. But our goal here is to make sure you feel comfortable with being able to sort this information so you can see really what you're after. Now in Excel 2007, you can sort by up to 64 different fields. It used to be 3 until Excel 2007. We have a couple different ways that you can filter your information. In other words, query based on criteria. If you have a number of records that have the same information, you can use the remove duplicates command, which will really help to clean up your database. And if you have a column that has a number of pieces of information all chunked together and you want to break them out into separate columns, the text to columns tool is what you'll want to use. There's also a few different data functions or data formulas that can really pinpoint with accuracy the information that you're after. I have put together a little database on our sales team performance. I've broken it out by salesperson, territory, and then the 4 quarters worth of sales. We're going to be working with sales numbers and our salespeople. Before we do that, though, I want to give you a few tips regarding collecting information in Excel. The first thing is you should always break your fields apart by the way you'd want to sort them. I've done something wrong here. I put salespeople together in one column. I should really break that apart so I could sort by last name if I wanted to. Right now, I can't sort by last name. I can only sort by the first character that appears in these cells, and generally speaking, when you're looking at people, you want to sort by last name, not by first name. Also, I did this correct. You don't want any blank columns or blank cells because while you're working with your data filtering and sorting, you want Excel to know what your range of cells is. And if you have a blank row or column, it's going to think, oh, well, it's a smaller range and it won't incorporate all the data from your database into that one large range from which you will be sorting or filtering. So let's start with sorting, and then we're going to break this column apart into first name and last name. It's as simple as using the data tab on your ribbon here. A to Z will sort it in ascending order. Notice it's sorting it by first name, not last name. Z to A, something that's been around in Excel for the last few versions is it does figure out the range that you're sorting by. It used to be if you had a cell selected, it would think, oh, I'm only supposed to sort this column, and therefore it would mess up all the other data. So if I were to sort just by this column, in the old days it would think, oh, well, I'm sorting west, I'll keep the same salesperson name and all this data the same, and that would really put a problem into your database because no longer were you looking at real data. I will tell you though, you can click anywhere in a cell and it's realizing I want to sort by this field, these are referred to as fields, and it keeps the entire record together. Just to be sure, we've got John Wordcheck here at $1,200. If I sort by descending order, I don't have John Wordcheck here anymore. I've got Dan Mercury, and look at that. He had a pretty big quarter there in Q1, $51,000. He sold the most. Wow, about $20,000 more than everybody else. Just to show you how you can mess up your sort order, I'm going to select columns A and B, and I'm going to choose to sort them by ascending order. Look what it did. It messed it up. Now I've got Amy at the $51,355 quarter. That's incorrect. I'm going to click the undo button and bring it back to the accurate data. So gleaning from that, when you are sorting, make sure you only have one cell selected. It could be anywhere in that column, and always save your data before you start doing these sorts because you could mess information up. Now, you may have noticed that these field headers haven't moved. Excel is smart enough to realize that this top row are my field headers and not to include them in the sort. I don't want salesperson to be sorted in there in the S's. I want to keep it at the top. Well, so far we've been using these buttons. You could always right-click as well. If I wanted to sort by Q2, I could right-click, choose Sort, and choose Sort Smallest to Largest. Now I'm sorting by Q2. I could right-click on territory and choose Sort A to Z. Now I'm sorting by territory. But let's get even more advanced by clicking this Sort button. I mentioned that now you could have up to 64 sorts in here. Up until Excel 2007, you could only sort by 3 different criteria. We are going to sort by territory, and then we'll add a level here. Then we'll sort by salesperson. And we'll do these both in ascending order. We're sorting on values. At this point, we don't want to sort by color, but that's a pretty cool functionality. I'll choose OK. Now we have sorted first by territory and then by salesperson. That's nice, right? Except, as I mentioned before, I did a bad job by putting all of these salespeople together. The first thing that I want to do in order to break up first names from last names is select a destination for those last names. I'd like it to be in between now what is A and B. So I'll right-click on column B and choose Insert. Because I right-clicked on an entire column, Excel was smart enough to pick up the idea that I want to insert an entire column. So here it is right here. The next step is to select the range of cells that I wish to break apart. Now, I'm going to grab that tool. It's on the data area of the ribbon, and it's called Text to Columns. This allows me to separate the contents of one Excel cell into a separate column. When I click on it, Excel says, you know what? I think your data is delimited. A delimiter is a character that indicates where that separation should occur, and that's true. It's delimited by a space. And this data shows me accurately the selected data. I'll choose Next. My delimiting character is a space, but notice if you did have a tab, a semicolon, a comma, or something else, you could choose that within this. This is showing me how it's going to break apart the data. That looks fine to me. I'll choose Next. Now it's saying, where is your destination? My destination is going to be, where is the very first name going to go, or the first area of the text going to go? Well, I want it to stay in column A. I'll click this button to go back into the dialog box, and I'll choose Finish. Look at that. It worked. I've got now Ann Wilson, Jack O'Reilly, Larry Wall, etc. I'm going to double click on this to resize the column, auto fit it, and I'm just going to call this now first name, and I'm realizing that I don't have the word salesperson in there, but that's okay because I've got the title of my file called Sales Team, and I could also put in a header. If I were to print this, I could do, salesperson by territory, something like that. I am going to click Save since I spent some time on that and I don't want to go back to the way my spreadsheet looked formerly. Now we're ready to get back in there and do some extra sorting. I want to sort by territory, then I want to sort by last name. Now I'm going to add a level. I'd also like to sort by Q2. I've got my order in ascending order for territory and last name, but let's do largest to smallest by Q2. Now when I choose OK, I see my last names here are in ascending order. I have 2 by Wilson. My primary sort was East. I had a number of Easts, so it was able to break apart and sort these by last name. I have 2 Wilsons, so let's see if it worked by Q2. It did. So I've got my first Wilson, it's descending order, so that's why the 63,000 is the largest number in Q2, and then it goes down to 22,000. The reason why 8,000 was at the top, even though it's not the highest number, is because it was my third sort, my tertiary sort control. All right, let's go ahead and go back into sort here. Notice I've got Q3 with 2 values, so let's go back into sort. Instead of Q2, let's sort by Q3, and so we get this information at the top. We'll do sort by territory, ascending, last name descending, Q3 largest to smallest. Okay, it worked. I've still got East, my 2 Wilsons, and my 2 Q3s. So it really hasn't broken these apart at all. I mean, Ann comes first, but she's come first the whole time anyway, so that really didn't break apart our sort. Now, this is what's new to 2007. I can even add another level. Notice if I have this selected and I choose Add Level, it's going to put a secondary sort in there. I want to delete that level. I want a fourth criteria that comes after these three items. Now, I can go ahead and choose by Q2. Let's see, would largest to smallest work? I'm going to move this out of the way. And still has the larger Q2, so let's do it in smallest to largest. Choose OK, and now it worked. East, Wilson, Q3 is the same, but finally we have a differentiator, and Nancy comes first now in that sort order. I'm going to go back to sort here, and I'm going to just delete all these. Oh, by the way, because I had a check mark in my data has headers, that's why this wasn't included in the sort. And notice Excel's picking up automatically that my range are all the connected rows. All right, looking good. Okay, we've got no sort order going on. You might recall, though, that we have the ability of sorting by colors, either the cell color, the font color, or if you had an icon within that cell on the top. That means as the ascending, if you were ascending order, that would be the top value. Sometimes when you're in a spreadsheet, you do mark certain cells. I'm going to go back to the Home tab and give this a color. You do mark certain cells with color because you want to call it out. Sometimes it's red because it's negative. In the case of numbers, you might have that as your format when you have a negative number to show it as red. And so you might want to put all those items that you've marked together in a nice sort order. So I'll choose sort. It's kind of cut off, but it's put selected cell color on top. Now I have all of these items together. It's not based on the data that's in that value. It's based on what that cell color looks like. Again, because you may have some system within your spreadsheet that you call out certain values based on certain information. I'm going to go ahead and put these back to no fill, and you could always do that again with font color or cell icon. I can also right click and go to custom sort here. I'm back to that very same dialog box that we were just in. But notice if I do sort on cell color here, I could choose no cell color, I could choose a cell color. Same thing goes with this. If I had icons in there, it would actually show me which icons that I wanted to sort by. We have options as a tab or as a button as well. Maybe it's case sensitive because for some reason in my database, sometimes I capitalize some values and sometimes I don't capitalize values. Or maybe I'm trying to clean up data and I really messed up one time and did some crazy capital letters. I could sort by case sensitivity and then I could update that information. I'll go ahead and choose cancel. The entire time that we've been sorting, we've still had all the records available to us. But what if you wanted just to see specific information? Maybe I only wanted to see the East Territory. I could go to Filter, and now look at that. This used to be referred to as Auto Filter in older versions of Excel, and it was in the Data menu. Well, now it's just the Filter button on the Data ribbon. So Territory, and it's hard for you to see this, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to make this window a little bit smaller. When I click on Territory, notice I can choose just to see the East Territory. Okay? Look at that. These blue row headers indicate that there are some hidden items. That we had the East Territory. It was in row 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. I'm only now looking at my East Territory. I could also filter it even more. I just want to see all the Wilsons that are in the East Territory. Now I'm down to 2 records, row 5 and row 6. And I can tell here that I have a filter. If I click on this button again, I can choose Select All. Now I'm back to these. And then I could go back to this and choose Select All. Or I could choose Clear Filter from Territory. Or I could just click this button. I'm back to seeing every record in my database. All 26 rows are visible now. As you probably guessed, a right click will also allow you to choose filter by cell's value. That was even quicker than what I did before. Right clicking again, filter. I could reapply it, refresh it, maybe some new data has come into my database. Or I can remove this, I can right click again, I can choose filter, and I could do this again by cell color, font color, cell icon. Maybe I only wanted to see the negative values that are in red. Of course, that wouldn't make sense in my territory field, but it would in my numerical field. If you want to even get more advanced, you can click on Advanced. Notice it assumes my entire range of cells, and we know this is right? Cell A1 through cell G26, column G, and we've already viewed the bottom of our range is 26. These dollar signs indicate, hey, no matter what, it's going to stay this way. It does say criteria range, though. We haven't yet dealt with a criteria range, so this might be new for you. It's not new to Excel 2007, but you have to set up your own criteria range. What is it that we want to query from our database? You'll need to have labels and then data. The easiest way for us to get labels would be to grab them from here. So let's do last name, territory, and Q1. I'm going to right click on them, choose copy, and I'm going to paste them over here. It doesn't matter where you paste these, they just need to be in their own criteria area. It could be above this range. I could have inserted some empty rows. You do need at least 3 empty rows in your criteria area if it's going to be combined in here with these items. And by 3 empty rows, I mean 2 rows for your criteria. Your labels are required, the data for your criteria, and then you need an empty row so that your Excel spreadsheet understands that it's not part of that range from which you are querying. Last name, let's go ahead and do Wilson. And that's all we'll query by now. I need to go back here and put my cell selector somewhere in my database range. Now I'll go back to Advanced. My list range is the same. My criteria range is this, K6 through M7. And I'll go ahead and filter the list in place. Okay. There's my result. I knew I had 2 Wilsons in my last name field. All right, very good. I could clear my filter. It brings everything back. Let's go ahead and copy our data to a new location. Instead of Wilson, let's go ahead and choose South. Just need to put my selector back in that range. I'll choose Advanced. My list range, the same. My criteria range, the same. I want to copy it to another location now. This location does have to be on the same active worksheet, so I can't put it in a new sheet. I also can't put it into a new file. Right here would be fine. Choose OK. OK. Let's check it out. Here it is. I've got now, starting in cell A29, the same column headers, and I have 3 South territory records. Is that accurate? Let's go back up here. We can do a quick little sort here and see that, yep, we only have 3 records from the South. We've got Andrew West, Michael DeLoach, and Carl Murphy. Yep, that's right. So this is a nice way that you can pull records out of a very large database and put them somewhere else. Again, it has to be on that same sheet. I'm going to click Save here just to make sure that our progress isn't lost. I mentioned before that you might have a lot of duplicate records within your spreadsheet. I'm going to make some duplicates. Susan Lake. I'm going to choose Copy. I'm going to choose right-click. That says Insert Copied Cells. I'm going to select these 2. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to choose Copy. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to choose, right-click here, and choose Insert Copied Cell. So now I have 4 Suzanne Lakes. When I press Escape, it'll get rid of those dashed lines. All right, so we don't want duplicates in here, do we? Let's go ahead and make sure we're on the Data tab of the ribbon and choose Remove Duplicates. To delete duplicate values, select one or more columns that contain duplicates. Now, I want to make sure that it knows my data has headers. I could have them all selected. It's going to look everywhere in my spreadsheet. Or if I happen to know just a few areas where I have duplicates, I could do it that way. And I don't want to select all, do I? Because what if I had really real data where a few salespeople had sold the same amount? Or I do have a lot of duplicate territories. That's good data. It's fine that I have duplicate north territories. Here is where I want the duplicates to be removed. I'll choose OK. 3 duplicate values were found and removed. 26 unique values remain. OK, let's check it out. Let's sort by last name. Ascending order. We should only have one Susan Lake in there, and we do. It was that easy. I'm going to click Save. Just to remind you, remove duplicates. Which columns should be checked for duplicates? I'll click Cancel there. There are a few different database functions that exist also. What if I wanted to see the maximum value? Well, of course, I could sort by this and see that, whoops, my maximum value, holy moly, that's a huge value. John Wertcheck is a ace seller, isn't he? I don't need this information anymore. So the best way to do this is just to autofill a blank cell around it. It's gone. Good. I'll save that. And we're going to use some functions. So we'll go to the formula area of the ribbon. Notice we don't have database as an item right here. So let's go into the insert function area. And we could do a search for a function. Notice again, we don't have database, so I'll choose all, and I'll scroll down to the D area. Once you feel comfortable with these formulas, you don't have to use this insert function wizard. You can simply type in the formula that you want. I want D max because I'd like to see the largest number in a field of records in the database that matches my conditions. This shows you what the conditions are. D max, within the parentheses, are the parameters that you're using as criteria. The database, the field, and then what exactly is it that I'm looking for. I'll go ahead and choose OK, and it pops me into the function arguments. My database. When I click this, I get to choose my database, and I want it to be all of this information here. This is a good reason why you should name your ranges, which we'll get into in a later nugget, because I didn't have to click and drag. If I had it named, I could have just simply typed in the name of my range of cells. What field? Well, let's look for the maximum in this Q4 field. It could be G1, or I could really type Q4 in there within quotes. Notice it's figured that out on its own. What's my criteria? My criteria is this range of cells. I'm looking for the maximum value in here. Click that. I'm looking OK. Notice it does tell you criteria is the range of cells that contains the condition you specify. My condition is maximum. Go and choose OK. Maximum, $33,000. Of course, I can go to Home. I can give it this dollar value so it looks like real data. And I should probably call this maximum so that I know what this 33,000 means. Do you think that's accurate? You think that's true? Let's test it out. We could do a couple things. We could go back and we could sort by descending order, and we see that. We can also do something that's even quicker than this. We can select, actually we can select the whole column. Notice it tells us the average of everything that's selected, the count, the sum of everything that's selected. If I right-click down here, I can also choose that I want to see the maximum, which is 33,000. If I click here just to close that, I now have added maximum to my status bar. And whenever I select an item, it'll tell me the maximum value of that range that I have selected. 98,000, 98,000. All right, so there's a couple ways that you can find the maximum. I showed you the real quick on-the-fly easy way to do it, but if it's something that you need to collect for later, so that you're able to use that again, and maybe in a couple different spreadsheets. You can certainly do that. When I double click on it, it shows me the formula right here in the spreadsheet. I'm going to do this so you can see that label. But it also shows it to me on that title bar there. Now I could also do this to find the minimum value. Just so you get practice again with this function wizard, I will do it that way, though of course I could just copy this formula and modify it for the minimum. But we'll go ahead and do the insert function. We've got all. We'll look for D minimum. Okay. What database am I using? Well, let's go ahead and use this exact same database as before. Alrighty. What field? Oh, what the heck. Let's do Q4 again. What criteria? That would be the range in which I'm looking for that minimum value. All right, looking good. Okay. So my minimum is 5,321. Oops. Which is correct, as you probably imagined. Now, if I want to just find the average, I can just type it in here. Point out that it's equal sign. Whenever you have a formula, you have to start it with an equal sign. It's D average, and I didn't have to capitalize these letters if I didn't want to. Once I get started, it tells me that this is the right formula. When I put the quote in there, it actually is going to show me the syntax. Isn't that nice? If I were to click on D average, it would launch help for me. I can't click on database here, but it's telling me, well, you need to tell me the database, because if I roll over field or criteria, it doesn't highlight or do anything. Do you remember what my database is? It's A1 through G, I think 26. We can be over, it's okay. With the syntax, I do a comma. I'm going to do my field as Q4 again, comma, and my criteria is cell G1 through, I believe, would be G26, right? Because that's the bottom range. I'm looking for the last column there. I need to finish this off with a closing parenthesis. I'll press enter, and there it is. It worked. I'm going to put a $sign there just to be pretty. Let's make sure it worked. I'm going to select this entire range of cells. The average says 17,154. This average says 17,154. Hopefully you feel a lot more comfortable with sorting, with filtering, extracting data based on criteria, and how you can even use the text to columns and the remove duplicates tool to make sure that your data has integrity and that it is intact. Overall, what we took a look at here was sorting. We now have more than 3 sort criteria available to us, or sort columns. Filtering, either by using that auto filter item or going into advanced filtering. Removing duplicates, breaking apart one column into multiple columns, and then some of the most basic data functions, dmax, dmin, and daverage. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.